Alright, what's up everyone, I'm Loki, and today we're going to be talking about all the rumors that are surrounding Russell Wilson right now. He wants out of Seattle, he's demanding a trade, he wants to go to the Bears, the Cowboys, the Raiders, or the Saints. And yes, this title is 100% clickbait, but I did that on purpose because every single other sports media thing is clickbaiting saying that Russell Wilson is going to be traded. I am clickbaiting to say he's not going to be traded. Now, it's really obvious Russell Wilson isn't going to be traded this offseason, but there still are some things that I want to talk about this general situation and why there's literally no way he can be traded. Now, number one, monetarily, the Seahawks would take a cap hit of $32 million if they traded Russell Wilson. That makes literally no sense. Why would you take a $32 million cap hit to get rid of an MVP level quarterback every single year with a bad offensive line? Just build an offensive line around him and, just keep him, that makes a lot more sense to me. And no team can really offer us what would be worth taking a $32 million cap hit and getting rid of one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Nothing will ever be worth what Russell Wilson is. The money situation is obviously something that completely rules it out. But I want to talk about the teams. Apparently, Russell Wilson has stated that the only teams he will waive his no-trade clause for is the Bears, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Cowboys. Now, number one, the Bears. Why does he want to go to the Bears? Their offensive line isn't that great. Who are the Bears going to trade as well? They're going to give us Mitchell Trubisky? Huh? I mean, what? Maybe they'll give us some first-round picks, but the Seahawks have shown that they're not that good with first-rounders. Why would we want first-rounders if we are not able to draft people consistently well in the first round? And what else would we get? We need a player in return for Russell Wilson. Who would they ever trade us for Russell Wilson? Khalil Mack? They don't even have him anymore. Do they? I don't even know what Khalil Mack's situation is. And even if they did, he's like 30-something. Why would we ever trade away Russell Wilson to the Bears? They couldn't give us anything in return. Why would Russell Wilson want to go to the Bears? Apparently, there's some rumors going around about it's a legacy thing. He wants to go and try to win with them and then become an owner and try to make them a good team again. Something weird like that. And then number two, the Raiders. Kind of like the Bears. What are they going to trade for? Who are they going to trade? Derek Carr and a bunch of first-round picks? Derek Carr's not that good. The first-round picks, obviously, we've kind of stated this. The Seahawks can't draft in the first round. Why would we want first-rounders? There's nothing that the Bears or the Raiders could really give us to be worth giving up Russell Wilson and taking a $32 million cap hit. Now, three, the Saints have no money. Why do people think the Saints are going to trade for Russell Wilson? They're like negative $80 quadrillion in like negative cap. What are you going to do? How are you going to make the cap room to get Russell Wilson and still have a team that isn't just full of practice squad players? How are you going to do that? I don't think the Saints have a chance ever at all to get Russell Wilson. They have no money. They don't really have that many assets. And I mean, why would we ever trade him there? Because they're just going to dominate the league if we did trade him there. And now the fourth and final one, the Cowboys. What may or may not be the most likely. They could potentially trade us Dak Prescott and some picks. Dak Prescott, he's young, he's cool. I think Dak Prescott's all right, but he has definitely shown a severe drop-off when the Cowboys' offensive line performed poorly. So why would we bring him into a situation with a bad offensive line? He did really good behind the Cowboys' amazing offensive line for the first few years of his career, but then last year and the year before that, he kind of struggled because their offensive line is just progressively getting worse and worse. So why would we take someone who has shown that he's not that great with a bad offensive line and put him in an even worse offensive line? And then second, Russell Wilson is levels above Dak Prescott. There's no way that Dak Prescott would be worth a trade for Russell Wilson, and we'd pay more money. And they'd give us some first round picks. We've said this before. The Seahawks can't draft in the first round. Why would we take any of that? So all four of those situations, I don't think that those will ever be trade options this offseason. Maybe next offseason. I have no idea what's going to happen next year or the year that Russell Wilson is out of his contract. Maybe he'll leave once his contract's over. But the Bears, the Raiders have not enough to even trade to even think about getting Russell Wilson. The Saints have no money. The Cowboys, maybe Dak Prescott, but I don't want Dak Prescott, and I don't think really anyone would want Dak Prescott for Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson's so much better. But now that we've gotten the reason why Seattle will not be able to trade, nor would they trade Russell Wilson away in this offseason, I want to talk a little bit about some of the stories that have broken, some of the things that really kind of worry me and really are the problem here that aren't Russell Wilson. Now, the things that I want to talk about that definitely seem to be the biggest problems here that aren't Russell Wilson, come from Evan Hill, something he shared on Twitter from an article from The Athletic. Some very interesting and very scary things when you actually look into it, and this is what they are. So first we have Evan Hill showing a little bit from that article from The Athletic, and it says, before the Thursday night game against Arizona, Wilson met with his coaches. For some time, Wilson had sought, even pushed, for influence within the organization regarding scheme and personnel. In the meeting, he outlined his own ideas for how to fix the offense. His suggestions were dismissed, multiple sources told The Athletic. Another reminder to Russell Wilson that the Seahawks did not see him the same way he saw himself, as a player who had earned greater control over his situation, his future, his legacy. He stormed out of the room. Now, obviously, you see this and you understand why Russell Wilson's upset, and that's something in the middle of the season. When they first began to struggle, Russell Wilson was like, hey, maybe we can fix this when we are just now beginning to struggle before it gets too bad. But they just completely dismissed him, and Russell Wilson is someone who, one, is a veteran quarterback, 2 is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, 3 is a guy that is basically the face of the franchise for Seattle. Why would he not have more control over what the team does? Why wouldn't he have any say in how the offense is ran, how the team, builds players around him? So that clearly makes no sense, and the fact that he was just completely dismissed is really bad, because that just shows that the coaches kind of have their own mind. They don't really want to listen to anyone else, and that's something that's brought up in the second tweet. The second tweet from Evan Hill is another part of the article from The Athletic, but he does give a little bit more of a kind of explanation of what he is putting, where he says, this won't be the main takeaway, but this is a massive problem. There is no accountability for Pete Carroll. He answers to no one. And the part of the article that he ended up showing says, this past season, receivers coach Nate Carroll, who has worked under his father since 2010, briefly stepped away from the job in frustration over his role before returning to the team, sources told The Athletic. Nate made his unhappiness known to players, sources said. For Wilson and those around him, the disruption validated a long-held complaint. Carroll, and by extension his sons, answer to no one. Now, this is definitely the major issue here. Pete Carroll doesn't answer to anybody, his sons don't answer to anybody, and when you see stuff like this said, this kind of makes you think this is the problem that Russell Wilson has. This is the problem that other players probably have around them. There's been a lot of talk about Pete Carroll being an amazing coach, letting his players be themselves, but there's also a ton of talk about Pete Carroll being stubborn, wanting to run his own offense, wanting to be old school, and really not listening to anybody else. And although it's nice that he lets his players be who they want to be, the part where he doesn't listen to anybody is a huge problem, especially when our offense doesn't work. If our offense stops working, if our game plan stops working and he stops listening to people and he just continues to run the same thing that's not working, which he has shown that he was willing to do, that is definitely a problem. And that is something that needs to be fixed. Either Pete Carroll needs to fix it himself, he needs to start listening to people, and the people around him need to start listening and working with other people, or we need to get Pete Carroll out of there. As sad as it is to say, if this is true about Pete Carroll and his sons, they need to get out of the organization. It's going to be difficult because the owner really doesn't have much power. Pete Carroll is kind of on the same level as the GM in having power over the team, while the owner just kind of sits there and does nothing. So we need to find a way to get Pete Carroll out. If this is true, if Pete Carroll is the problem, if Pete Carroll's sons are the problem, then this is something that needs to be fixed immediately, because if Russell Wilson is having a problem with Pete Carroll and his sons, I would much rather get rid of Pete Carroll and everyone around him before I get rid of Russell Wilson. And something that I saw on the internet recently from Matthew Berry is complete and utter facts. He is speaking the truth and he is having the correct opinion. This is what he said.
But I got to tell you something. When you think about Russell Wilson, right? Only quarterback in the NFL with at least 30 passing touchdowns each of the last 2 seasons. In fact, he's done it for 4 straight years. His completion percentage has improved each of the last 3 seasons. Since 2017, Russell Wilson leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. He's 6th in passing yards. He never gets hurt. He's a model citizen. He's a face of a franchise. He's a pillar of the community. Like, what are we doing? I have to tell you that if I owned Seattle, I would get rid of Pete Carroll. I would get rid of the front office. I would get rid of everyone before I got rid of Russell Wilson. Like, if you're Seattle, you got to make this right one way or the other.
Now, this from Matthew Berry is absolute facts. This man is spitting nothing but facts. Not only is he talking about the fact that Russell Wilson is an amazing quarterback, bringing up all the statistics that really matter, but the fact that he acknowledged where everyone else is saying Russell Wilson's going to be traded, it's going to happen because he's so upset, he's really the only person that I've seen that has said, if you're the Seahawks, you have to get rid of every single other person before you get rid of Russell Wilson. You get rid of Russell Wilson, the team's done. The Seahawks aren't going to be a good team if you get rid of Russell Wilson. If you get rid of Pete Carroll, if you get rid of the people under Pete Carroll, then guess what? You'll probably be fine because you still have Russell Wilson and every other great player on that team. If you can get rid of Pete Carroll and the people around him, if they are the problem for Russell Wilson, out, you get them out, because Russell Wilson is 10 times more important than any coach on that team. Honestly, this situation is just completely and utterly hectic. There's so much stuff coming out about this whole situation. Russell Wilson isn't going to be traded, but every single new thing that keeps coming out really makes it look worse and worse for what's going on in the situation around Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. And even if he isn't going to be traded this offseason, I definitely think that something needs to be fixed this offseason going into next season. If Pete Carroll needs to leave, get him out of there. Russell Wilson is the most important person here. It doesn't matter who is a coach, who is a front office member. If Russell Wilson has a problem with them and they are actually causing a huge problem, which makes Russell Wilson want out of Seattle, get rid of them. All right, that is the most important part. Russell Wilson is the guy who has been the glue of this team. He's been the face of the franchise, MVP level quarterback every single year, and he is just an amazing person as well. Why would you want to get rid of him? There is no reason to get rid of Russell Wilson. Seattle is probably going to keep Russell Wilson. They've said that they really don't want to trade him. The asking price is insanely high for Russell Wilson. But I mean, all this stuff about Russell Wilson coming out with all the situations with Pete Carroll, his sons having no accountability, that is a problem. That needs to be figured out, where he will take accountability or he needs to get out. And I'm talking about Pete Carroll. So this is definitely something that has a lot of things that continue to build onto it. He's not going to be traded, but all these situations around Russell Wilson and around the coaches not really agreeing with him and not listening to him, those are huge problems. And really, the thing that makes me really hopeful for this is the fact that Adam Schefter himself, in the original tweet where he was basically breaking the news about Russell Wilson saying he would go to the Bears, Raiders, Saints, or Cowboys, it literally starts off saying Russell Wilson told the Seahawks he wants to stay in Seattle. He doesn't want to leave Seattle, but if he is going to be traded, those are the only teams he will waive his no trade clause for. So Russell Wilson, he states he wants to stay in Seattle. He wants to figure things out. He wants to work it out. But I mean, if these problems with Pete Carroll are the big thing with Russell Wilson and any other coach around him, not listening to him, dismissing him like it said that they did before the Thursday Arizona game, that is a huge problem. Get any guy that will not listen to their franchise quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, the face of the franchise. Get anyone who won't listen to that guy when it comes to personnel, scheme, or anything to do with the offense. Get them out of there. Russell Wilson is the most important man in Seattle right now. I don't care about Pete Carroll. I don't care about the people around Pete Carroll. Russell Wilson is the guy you need to keep on the team. You need to keep in the organization for as long as you possibly can, by any means necessary. That's it. But with that, that's going to do it for this video. It took me a little while to make this video because I kind of wanted to let some more things clear the air, because when things broke, what was it, yesterday morning or the day before, everything was kind of all crazy, going crazy at once, and everyone was talking about it, having horrible claims. But as more situations kind of came out, more news about other situations came out, it definitely started to look worse and worse, but it doesn't seem like Russell Wilson's going to be traded whatsoever. I don't think he's going to be traded, but there are definitely some situations that seem like they need to be fixed. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about that. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day.